Dean and Tyler Listle are registered investment advisor representatives. Investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Secure Retirement Solutions, LLC are not affiliated companies.
It's time for Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. Now, here are your hosts, Dean and Tyler.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Tyler and I will discuss topics that affect your retirement, such as investments, income planning, Social Security, and much more. How are you this morning, Tyler?
Doing well, Dean. How are you?
Great, thank you. We've got a good show today. We're going to be talking about retirement planning mistakes to avoid. We've been on a roll here the last couple of weeks talking about some mistakes and pitfalls, but we see a lot of them. And unfortunately, for those people, some of these mistakes tend to linger for years. Others, if you discuss them in advance and people are in the retirement process or planning, they can avoid them. It's going to help them in the long run. The first one we're going to talk about is retiring too soon. We tend to see this one quite often. As a retirement planning company, financial advisors, we try to get people retired as quickly as possible, provided the numbers work for them. And when I talk about the numbers working for them, we create complimentary retirement financial plans for clients, or anybody who comes in through our front door. We'll create a complimentary plan for them. And in that plan, we're going to look at, debt situations. We're going to look at income situations, needs. We're going to see what they want to do with the monies when they retire. Is it for beneficiaries, or do they need to have it for their own living expenses? Once we do that, you can target a retirement. But unfortunately, we tend to see those people who also come in and they want to retire so badly, regardless of what the numbers look like, they tend to retire too soon. Tyler, take us through some of the pitfalls that we see by retiring too soon.
Yeah, Dean, and most people, they don't want to hear this, but one of the retirement planning mistakes to avoid is, like you said, retiring too soon. And about 75% of retirees sign up for their Social Security benefits at age 62, which that's the earliest age allowed to sign up for benefits. That means they lose out on about 25 to 70% of their potential Social Security benefits had they waited. And what most people fail to consider is actually how long they'll live after they retire. And believe it or not, most retirees actually underestimate how long they live. And according to the Social Security Administration, at least one member of a 65-year-old couple can expect to live to age 88, and a third of all retirees will live to age 92. So that means 1 in 3 people who are retired will live to be 92 years old. And with that said, it might be in your best interest to stretch out your working years and try and maximize your Social Security benefits, meaning let those defer and grow. And keep in mind, your Social Security will grow by about 6% from 62 until your full retirement age, which can be either 66 years old or 67, depending on when you were born, or somewhere in between there. And then your Social Security grows by about 8% per year from your full retirement age until 70 years old. And again, it grows by those numbers as long as you don't take it. Now, when you take it, if you take it early, you're not going to get that growth. That growth is for every year that you defer your benefits. And obviously, if you have health problems, some people have health problems or they can't work, or maybe they have a substantial amount of money in retirement funds, then they can start drawing Social Security at 62. Some people need to regardless. But if you can afford to delay your benefits, then that might be the difference between a comfortable retirement or a retirement where you have more free time if you retire earlier, but not quite enough income or money to fully enjoy that retirement.
Okay, good point. And also, Tyler was talking about Social Security. Understand, we're not associated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other governmental agency. We're financial advisors. It's very important we do talk about Social Security, though, because it's part of that three-legged stool that we refer to periodically, and that is you have fixed income, which Social Security falls into that. You have pensions, which unfortunately we're seeing fewer and fewer of those, and then you have your own retirement savings or investments. So understand Social Security is extremely important going into retirement. Another thing here about retiring too soon, unless there's an emergency or health situation, keep this in mind. If you have to go back to work after you originally retire, it's typically poor planning. Okay? I mean, it is somebody who really wants to get out of work so badly that they really don't consider what the pitfalls are going to be of lack of income going forward. On the other hand, if you want to work after retirement, that's all right. It's great. Go out there and work part-time, work for charities, do whatever you feel at that point. So again, if you have to go back to work after retirement, probably poor planning. Okay, another one of the mistakes we'd like to have you avoid is underestimating your cost of living in retirement. When we talk to those people coming in, they want to know how much they are going to need to live on in retirement. We say, well, what are you comfortable with? What is your salary right now? If it's a husband and wife, we look at their salaries together and say, okay, what our goal is for most people is to slide right from their salary in working years into retirement without a hitch. That would be wonderful, but on average, it's about 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income should be maintained in retirement to create a similar lifestyle. So 70 to 80% would be a target. If it's more than that, wonderful. If it's less than that, some things are going to have to be done because you probably are going to be changing your lifestyle significantly. You either need to do one of two things: increase income or decrease expenses. Well, it's going to be hard to increase income because you no longer have payroll coming in, so it's going to be decreasing expenses. So manage those expenses before you go into retirement. So underestimating your cost of living in retirement, Tyler, let's talk about some of those phases.
Yeah, Dean, when it comes to underestimating your cost of living in retirement, we hear it all the time where many people, they'll come into our office and they say, I hear that you won't have as many expenses in retirement, so you don't need as much money as you think. And while that may be true for some, it doesn't always work that way. And like you touched on, Dean, it's recommended that people need approximately 70 to 80% of their pre-retirement income or their working income to maintain a similar lifestyle in retirement. However, we oftentimes see clients spending more in retirement initially than they did while they were working. So actually, when they age into retirement, oftentimes they're actually spending more than when they had worked. And we have three phases that people go through in retirement. And the first phase, we call it the go-go phase. And that's one where you just retire, you're early in your retirement, you're busy, you're traveling, you're taking on hobbies, doing activities. You may be visiting family, grandkids, doing projects. You basically seem to always be on the go. And naturally, with this always being on the go, doing different things, you're going to be spending a good amount. And this phase right here is where we see people oftentimes actually spending more initially in retirement than they did when they were working. And then they go from the go-go phase into the slow-go phase. So this is where they might be in the middle of their retirement, in their 70s into their early 80s, and here they still may travel and do different activities, but not as often as they did in their early retirement years. And also at this point, some health problems might arise. And naturally you slow down, and as you slow down, you don't do as much. You're automatically not going to spend as much. So we go from that into the no-go phase. Here's the depressing phase. It's later on in life. You may not be able to drive, and you might even have to have caretakers that take you places and possibly even be confined to a nursing home. You're not traveling at all. You're not partaking in any hobbies at this point here. You're not spending as much as you were earlier. So it's a natural phase that we go through in retirement where we initially spend more than we think, and then as we go through life and we're not as busy, we're not taking on as many different things, we're not going to spend as much.
Okay, if you're just tuning in, my name is Dean Listle. I'm here with Tyler Listle. We're financial advisors with Secure Retirement Solutions. We're located on Allied Street in Green Bay. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can call us at 920-347-9888, or you can go to our website to communicate with us by email or look us up. Our website address is srsplans.com. SRS stands for Secure Retirement Solutions, srsplans.com. Okay, so we're going to be talking about another mistake we would like you to avoid going into retirement, and that is not having a withdrawal plan in retirement. People come into the office, they will have, let's say, a number of investment or retirement plans that they've accumulated through their working years. They've been retired and they're withdrawing from some of them. They could come in with an IRA or two that they roll their 401ks into. They might have a Roth IRA and maybe just some non-qualified investments that they started with savings, or they sold something and invested that money. And they'll be withdrawing randomly from some of these accounts for no reason other than, I don't know, they threw a dart. I'm not quite sure. But here's the problem with that. Taxes, okay? I am not a CPA, but we have the clients come in and sit down with our tax advisor when we do withdrawals. Many of these situations should be staged correctly based on your taxes. As an example, I had one client who had come in to work with us. She had a Roth account that she was drawing down quite significantly in retirement, yet she was in a very low tax bracket. So she really didn't realize the full benefit of that Roth account. That Roth account would have been better served pushing it towards the later end of her retirement, so it would go tax-free onto her beneficiaries, or as her accounts are being diminished over the years and taxes goes up, that's when she could use some tax relief. So you really want to stage your withdrawals correctly. Also, market has something to do with it too, and Tyler's going to talk about, pulling withdrawals from a market-driven account when the market is down. Tyler, let's talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, not having a withdrawal plan in retirement is often overlooked by many people because you work so hard saving up all this money, and when you retire and the time finally comes to start withdrawing the money and taking it to live on, then most people get no guidance when it comes to any type of withdrawal strategy. And this is where it can be beneficial to have different types of accounts with different types of investments so you can stage your withdrawals and not be as affected by what we call sequence of returns risk. And that's the risk of receiving negative returns early in a period when withdrawals are made from those investments. So meaning people who retire and start withdrawing from their accounts in 2008 are going to have a different outcome than people who retired and withdrew from their accounts in 2010. And if you retire in a down market and you start withdrawing money from an account that's invested in stocks, then you're selling the shares at a low and they never get a chance to rebound and recover over time. And you can lose a large amount of money withdrawing from a market-driven investment account when the market's going down. So we like to have a plan in place for our clients where they have a portion of what we call their safe money that they can withdraw from early in retirement if the market takes a downturn. And some of that safe money could be invested in anything from savings to a money market account to different types of treasuries or annuities, different things of that nature where they don't run the risk of losing any money. And then we also have the growth portion, and that contains your stocks and different types of stock mutual funds or exchange-traded funds, which we don't want to sell off during a market downturn because, again, we'd be selling those shares at a low, never giving them a chance to rebound, and that would really bring down the account because we have the market going down, and then we're taking withdrawals, which would completely deplete that account.
Okay. And if you don't know if you're withdrawing from the right accounts, talk to your advisor. If you'd like to have a second opinion, stop in our office. We'd be more than happy to take a look at your portfolio, give you a second opinion. It's complimentary. Tyler brings up a good point there when you're talking about the market. Some people will say they're drawing from the market because at that particular time their accounts aren't doing that well. That's not necessarily the best way to approach it. Sometimes you want to look at it and start drawing down heavier on market-driven products, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, if the portfolio is doing quite well, because you're basically giving it a haircut and you're taking gains. And Tyler said safe money. You want to have that in place to protect some of your market-driven products. When the market isn't performing real well, you don't want to deplete the account by withdrawing too heavily when the shares are at a low or lower. So you want to go towards some of these safer areas, cash, money market, treasuries, annuities, municipal bond accounts. Draw down from there and let your market-driven equity positions regain a little bit. So make sure you have somebody help you with staging your withdrawals in retirement. Okay, the next one, mistake that we'd like you to avoid is withdrawing from your retirement accounts too early. Unfortunately, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, we tend to see this more and more where people are withdrawing from their 401ks while they're still working. Tyler, what are some of the pitfalls with that?
Yeah, this is definitely a mistake to avoid. And there are quite a few people that don't realize it, but when it comes to withdrawing from your retirement account too early, age 59 and a half, that's a number to keep in mind. And the IRS, they do it all the time. They have these funny numbers, or funny ages, and that's 59 and a half. That's what they consider retirement age for you to start withdrawing from your qualified retirement accounts without a penalty. However, if you withdraw before the age of 59 and a half from your IRA or your 401k, you incur a 10% IRS penalty on the amount withdrawn, plus you have to pay taxes on it. So for example, if you want to you're under the age of 59 and a half and you want to take a $10,000 withdrawal, then automatically right away you're going to get hit with a $1,000 penalty, and that's the 10% IRS penalty on $10,000. And then hypothetically, let's say you're in the 25% tax bracket, you're also going to have to pay $2,500 in taxes come tax time. So that may only leave you with a net amount of $6,500 on a $10,000 withdrawal, just because all of the taxes and fees that are taken out of it. So right there, that just kind of illustrates that the IRS, they're going to ding you any way they can, and they want to prevent you from withdrawing from a retirement account early, because that's exactly what the accounts are for. They're intended for retirement. They want to discourage you from withdrawing from it earlier. And someone actually, a relatively younger person, they asked me once about withdrawing $20,000 out of their 401k to buy a new house instead of building up $20,000 in savings to put toward a down payment. And I told them that if you even need to consider withdrawing from your 401k to buy a house, then you can't afford the house, and it's really as simple as that. So again, withdrawing from your 401k and IRA before 59 and a half years old, it should be the very last option that we consider. Obviously, people do run into hard times, and they do need to get their hands on some money in some form. It can be an option, but again, it should be the last option, just because that money grows tax deferred, and the IRS will penalize the heck out of you if you try and withdraw earlier than that.
Right. And another thing to add here too, Tyler, is when people withdraw from their 401k early, so they take the penalties, they withdraw, chances are they're never going to recover that money that they withdrew. And really, you're missing out on an opportunity of compounding growth that would be there. So look at other options. Many times when you talk to people who are targeting a 401k to take from early, and you spend 5 minutes to talk about other options out there, many of them are much more positive in the long run than taking money from your 401k. Okay, another potential mistake that we'd like you to avoid is not maximizing your employer match on your 401k or your employer-sponsored plan. I spoke with somebody a couple of years back when we were looking at their financials and their statements. Many times, workers only have a 401k or an employer-sponsored plan to start retirement. Many people don't start on their own with IRAs or any other type of savings. So that means it's extremely important that you create that foundation of that 401k for your retirement. In meeting with this person, I asked, how much money do you have in your company's 401k? And he told me nothing. And I asked for, why? You're making a good salary. Why aren't you putting some of that money aside? And his response is, well, my employer doesn't get me a match, so I feel that I shouldn't invest in the 401k. Well, the only person you're really penalizing is yourself if you have that mentality. And part of the reason is even if your employer gives you no match, you still have an opportunity to put money into a 401k, which is pre-tax dollars. That's extremely important. Okay, it's pre-tax dollars. The other thing is the growth in the 401k is 100% tax deferred, meaning you pay absolutely zero taxes on all of the growth that you receive over your lifetime in a 401k until you start withdrawing at retirement. So again, if you're not contributing into a 401k because your employer isn't matching and you cop a bit of an attitude, you're just hurting yourself. Tyler, am I missing anything there?
Exactly, Dean. And we help manage different 401k plans, and I always tell employees that by all means, if you can, you want to maximize the match, as I call it, where, for example, if your employer matches dollar for dollar up to 3% of your salary, then I recommend that you try and contribute at least 3% of every paycheck into the plan. That way you can maximize the match and so on. Whether it's 4%, 5%, you should really try and make it a goal to contribute at least up to the match, because if you don't, then you're just leaving free money on the table, as I like to call it. It's free money that your employer puts in on your behalf into your IRA. And another thing too, meeting with people, I first and foremost, when they talk about where they want to invest, I ask if they do have an employer plan through work that matches. And then before any other option, right away you're going to want to go into the match, because again, that's free money. Then we can look at other options like the Roth IRA, the traditional IRA, different things like that. But by all means, you want to try and maximize the match. And even if you just get started, if you're relatively younger or you don't have the means to contribute fully to the match right now, let's say, again, going back to our example, if your employer will contribute up to 3%, and even if you can start at 1% and then gradually work your way up to 1.5%, 2%, 2.5% to eventually 3%, and so on, over time, again, just maximize the match. And not maximizing that employer match is really a mistake that we see a lot of people making, especially if they can afford to do so.
Okay. The next mistake that we would like to see you avoid, and one that we see, is not diversifying your investments. It's as a human nature, we want to go where the best returns are, of course. And many times what happens there is your portfolio tends to get a little bit lopsided, just going where the momentum or the sectors that are performing are at. We'd like to see diversification in your investments all the time. We believe in wealth that you accumulate to use in retirement should be spread wide and thin. So make sure that you diversify your investments.
Exactly, yeah. And Dean, as many people know, the old saying is don't put all your eggs into one basket when it comes to diversification. And as you touched on, it's easy to get caught up in your investments when the market's doing well, and you may want to go into riskier investments and chase those returns when the market's doing well, kind of like we see right now where the market is at a high, it's pretty inflated. But without being properly diversified, you're then subjecting yourself to higher risk with only a potential for better returns, because again, nothing is guaranteed and the market can take a downturn within a day. And if you're not properly diversified, you're definitely going to feel that downturn. And oftentimes we see people who have a lack of diversification, primarily those who have an ESOP or employee stock ownership plan, where they receive employer stock as a portion of their benefits or compensation. And we've had clients who have come into our office with half of their net worth, with a couple $100,000, all in employee stock. And so they hold one single stock, and a single stock risk is the riskiest investment you can get in the market. And those people right there really need to focus on diversifying, especially, again, like I said, if they build up thousands of dollars in one single stock.
Okay. So along with the diversification, how about not rebalancing your portfolio? We talked about momentum. People like to go where they're getting the best rate of return. It's wonderful. The market is performing well. We'll have some people come in and show me that, their portfolio that they've put together, they might have 20 or 30% increases on certain equity positions in their portfolio. And they'll tell me how much they've gained. And I said, well, actually, you didn't gain anything. That's still just a number on paper. When you gain is when you actually take your gains. You give a haircut to those equity positions that are doing extremely well. So if you have something in your portfolio that's gained, 10, 15, 30%, whatever it may be, you want to go back and rebalance. And what I mean by that is take your gains, give a haircut to those that are performing well, and go and reinvest them back into the portfolio into either new positions, so you're actually creating a broader basket of investments, or go back and reinvest into some of the winners in the portfolio. But you don't want to get too heavy. So, for instance, if you're putting together a portfolio, you go through the process of a risk analysis. When somebody comes to work with us, we sit down, we take them through a risk analysis. If they grade out as a moderate risk, what we do is create a portfolio based on that. If the portfolio starts to get too risky beyond their risk, it's because of the gains in certain positions. So you need to rebalance the portfolio. It's also good for the long term. Why? Because, again, you're taking some of those gains, you're bringing them back down, you're reinvesting in some other things, getting you back in line with what might be, your 30% bond and cash positions and maybe 70% equity positions.
Exactly, Dean. And let's say a client comes in and they have a portfolio that they initially structured as 50% stocks, which are used for the growth potential, and then 50% bonds, which are used for preservation, income, and stability. So a good quality balanced portfolio, 50-50. After a few years or even after a few months, it probably won't be the same. It may go into 70% stocks and 30% bonds over the course of a couple years. And that's because the stocks, they may experience a good run-up of significant growth, and the stock portion will grow while the bond holdings only might grow slightly. So it will kind of get you quite a bit out of whack. And if you don't correct that, if you don't rebalance and go back to your initial 50-50 balanced allocation over time, again, it can get really out of whack. And then if there were to be a market downturn when you're out of balance, you could take on a lot more in terms of losses than what you had expected.
Okay, and also remember, asset allocation and diversification does not guarantee a profit or protect against loss in a declining market. It's a method used mainly to manage investment risk. So always remember that. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is becoming paralyzed by choices. Okay, it's overwhelming. Some people think the retirement process is absolutely overwhelming. They get caught up in too many things happening at the same time. How much money do I need to save? How much money do I need in retirement? What investments are right for me? Slow down. Take it one step at a time, okay? It took you a long time to get to retirement. You don't have to create your whole retirement plan in one day. That stands true also for investing. A lot of people come in, they haven't put $1 yet into an investment, but they want to talk about every investment in the world. Let's just get started. Start putting some money away. Create a habit. Get started. We can always amend and make some changes as we go along. And also adding to that, it's never too early or too late to start. So let's not become paralyzed by choices.
Yeah, again, Dean, the number one thing there too is like you said, take it one step at a time. And whether it's investing into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA that you start up on your own, or even your employer-sponsored plan like we talked about, like your 401k, your 403b, where you can contribute a lot of money into those. Just really start. Number one is saving in different types of retirement accounts and different types of investments. And then over time, as you get closer to retirement, then sit down with someone, a financial professional, and they will help guide you along from there. But you just got to start. You kind of have to put all the choices and everything like that on the back burner and just tell yourself you're going to save for retirement.
Okay, folks, so when we start talking about retirement planning mistakes to avoid, just remember it took you a long time to get to retirement. You did a lot of the hard work. You've put money aside. Sit down, spend some time with a financial planner or an investment advisor. Again, if you'd like a complimentary review of your statements and where you're at right now, just give us a call at 347-9888. We're located in Green Bay. We'd be happy to sit down with you and talk about maybe some recommendations that we would put in place for you. But at this point, that's all the time we have this week, Tyler. I hope everything goes well for your listeners out there, and you'll tune in again next week.
We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. To get more information from Dean and Tyler, contact them at Secure Retirement Solutions on Allied Street in Green Bay. Call 920-347-9888 or visit them at srsplans.com. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. Member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services is not an affiliated company.